the children from the early stages onwards are discouraged to study social sciences or languages by our parents. I mean, if you target your child should go for engineering, and if he is studying languages like Malayalam or Telugu or Kannada, then you stop the child and ask him to, attend for tuitions in maths or physics, because that's where you need to make progress. So NEP objects to this. The reason because a person can be good. There are certain things which we can understand better when our language skills are nurtured and developed. So that's very important. And sometimes I get so much of relaxation after reading something in language that I get energized to study physics or mathematics. So why life becomes dull and boring as a student, for a student, it's mainly because we always insist what should be done and don't give opportunities to them. Recently there was a person who has schools, and he was telling, so what is the difference between work and passion? I said this, so supposing I have a passion for music and give it as a work, and that fellow will lose that passion. So in the sense, passion should be passion. So it should not be just like, you sit and play music from 9 to 12, that fellow will run away from the instrument, isn't it? So that way I think we should nurture these abilities and skills and give plenty of opportunities. So there should be some combination of things which should happen, which have not been there. So some people, especially hardcore mathematicians and people who are physicists, etc., they may oppose to this, saying that, if you are good in physics, you should study the allied subjects like chemistry, mathematics, etc. Yes, it is understood. They require certain basic inputs from these subject areas. But they can also choose some other options where they can get relaxed and they can relate that with something else. And also there is a reason to do that.
As we are following 10+2 system right now, and as the new education policy, we are going to follow 5+3+3+4 model. So as we are focusing on skill development, as we see across the NEP. So how, as a teacher at a primary level, we are trying to develop them, to develop their, to enrich their skill set. But as per your guidance, as you're more knowledgeable, you can guide us in a better way how to build the skill set in the students. We should foster the skill set in them, that they should be more skill oriented, not just bookish, as they will be reading textbooks. Few children, as a teacher, I have seen few children will be focusing only on marks. They just want out of marks. They want to pass with good marks, which is just a number, but no skills.
Okay. So,
yes, sir.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'll take up 2 or 3 and then I'll answer.
No difference between science, commerce or humanities, the streams. Okay. Suppose if I teach biology, then the student will select sociology or political science. How far it is going to be like helping the student or building the student's future? Where he'll stand after studying biology with that sociology or with the language, other language, or maybe he's selecting music or a craft. Like now we have that streams. If I I have done my BSc, then I have just completed my MSc, I'll go with the lane. Okay. And if this is the choice that the student will go with the selection of different combinations, how far we can judge or what is the future of India? Thank you.
Any other? I'll take one more and then on.
Excuse me, sir. I have one more. So my one more question is, as a maths teacher, we have seen that the students who are lacking behind in language, they are not able to understand even maths. If they don't know the language in a proper way, whether it is English or their rural language, they don't understand even maths. They lag behind. So as the policy is giving a scope on multilingualism, it would help that you can foster us to understand in a better way.
Let me quickly respond because I'll forget the questions and I may not be able to answer. Then you will think that this person is evading questions, which I don't want. So, when it comes to the very first question, that this change of the structure. So, how it will help, right?
Yes.
That was the question.
So regarding skill,
Yeah.
how we should foster the skill?
Skill set.
Skill set.
So, when it comes to you want skills to be incorporated as part of that. Yes, that's what. See, people always nowadays are talking in terms of competencies. So, competencies consists of certain knowledge and values and skill. So, these are very important. Let me give you an example of swimming. I feel very okay with it. Supposing, how do you know that child has a competency to swim? So whether it is 25 meters or 50 meters, if he or she is able to do that, then you will know that yes, he has the skill. So apart from the skill, he should have the knowledge also, in the sense how things float and how to make body weight light and how to swing arms and move legs, isn't it? So these are cognitive aspects which have to be turned into action, isn't it, through swimming. And you need to have certain values. Say for example, when you go for swimming, you must have seen in all this in hotels and all, they would ask you to, take a shower before you go, because you should not urinate in that swimming pool and contaminate. So there are certain things, and also that you should follow your lane. When you are competing with others, you cannot cross the lane and kick someone else out. So there are certain principles in the values which you need to follow. So in the sense you cannot do different strokes. If you are doing a particular stroke, whatever, so then you should adapt that only, and you should not suddenly change a stroke and go fast. So there are certain values, skills and knowledge which are all required. So this is called as a competency. So when you have these competencies, now education is competency oriented. It's not just simply knowledge oriented. It's not just memorizing. That's very important. So take this example to education. So how do I know that a child has an ability to send a message to another person through email? So you should be able to use the computers and have an email ID, create whatever, and should know what to write and how to write to different persons. You are writing to your father, you have to write very differently. You are writing to your family member, you have to write differently, and then send that mail. So this is a competency. Here again you get all the skills, isn't it? So your ability to operate, your knowledge about all these computer systems and all that, and the values that you are keeping in mind in sending the message. So what we are interested, right from the beginning, it's not the new education policy which talks about that. Educational systems have been talking about it, but only as part of rat race we are making the children run, and also to some extent because we don't have facilities. So that's why cognitive domain has taken priority.
should it move to the next class or should it remain at the same stage of schooling? So these are some of the insights that we can draw based on the learning outcomes. Now, the learning outcomes, they basically, when we write them, they comprise of two things. The first one being an observable behavior or an action work along with any special condition for displaying the outcome. The next being, after the action work comes the subject for which the action is being taken. So these two things become very important when it comes to writing a learning outcome. Now, let us move on to a different aspect which is further related to the topic that we are assembled here for. So, the learning outcome, pedagogy and assessment.
Then finally I want to tell about what is the next year you will learn what is the inauguration number also, right? So then only it will be connection, then it give you one image, right? Let's suppose I am not giving the any idea about the irrational number here. What will happen here? Suppose I am directly after the integer I am going to teach the irrational number. What will happen here? See here, some space will be there. So there will not be any connection. So the constructivism giving the importance for linking between the previous knowledge. So that is why we are constructing some building or a design or something else that should be, ma'am, please make it anyone design or how the children they will make a
teacher is very important. So what we are going to do in this session is something where I don't think I will be giving you any new ideas, but I will try to draw, because you are all teachers, you have been teaching and you know what happens in a classroom, right? So it is not that something new is going to be given to you, but then we are only going to revisit that is the objective. Revisit our experiences as students and teachers and share them with a view to identify areas and skills for enhancing effectiveness. So that is what is the purpose. We are trying to revisit our experiences right from the time when we were students and also the time when we have become teachers, right? There are some questions. Let us begin with some questions. The idea as to what teaching is. The question which normally gets asked, whether teaching is an art or is it a science? We'll begin with the backward man.
Good morning, sir. It's both, sir.
Okay, would you like to say why you think so?
Because I teach science and especially biology, and I feel it is a science.
Okay.
And basically, to teach science, I need all the artistic values. And without the art of the teaching, I can't teach. So that's the both. It is art and the science. Thank you.
Thank you. It is an art.
Yes, sir. Sir, art is, teaching is an art as, because for that you require all your brain into teaching in a different and unique way. And
Let us listen to some gentlemen also.
I said it's both art and science because it needs some skills. Everybody cannot be a teacher, everybody can't teach. So some particular skills, artistic skills are needed to teach even a science.
Thank you. Thank you. Sir.
So teaching is both art and science. Without an aesthetic sense, you cannot teach. And everyone cannot have an aesthetic sense. They will find something ugly in everything. So it's not a cup of tea for everybody.
Everybody. Yeah, that is what he is saying. It's not a cup of tea for everybody. What do you think, Doctor? But when it comes to practicing teaching, many of these variables are operating together. And handling them simultaneously is an art. And yesterday we were discussing this. At the beginning, a teacher finds it really difficult sometimes even to take decisions in the classroom. And is also wondering, did I do it correctly or not? Why is it that I am not able to achieve this? Things of that kind. But as you progress as a teacher, it seems that it has become so easy. You do not see any jerks in performance. There are no jerks. It looks as if it is a fluent kind of a thing, which is what I think Madam said as art. The kind of fluency in performance. That is what makes it an art. Okay, let me proceed further. The question then is, who is an effective teacher? For this, you may have to revisit your time as a student. And it is known that every student has one or the other favorite teacher. When you were in the school also, I am sure you had a favorite teacher. It doesn't matter which subject that teacher taught. It doesn't matter whether it was a male teacher or a female teacher. It also doesn't matter whether the teacher was an experienced teacher or a newly appointed teacher. But as students, you saw something in that teacher which appealed to your mind. What I want is, take 1 or 2 minutes maximum. Remember that teacher who you thought was your favorite teacher and write 4 qualities of that teacher. 4 qualities. Why did you like that teacher? What made you like that teacher? Rajeshwari madam, ನೀವು ಮಾಡಬಹುದು. You can also remember your teacher and think of the qualities.
Then those who are sitting in the classroom, and she has to repeat the whatever she is teaching, she has to repeat it 2 or 3 times, especially in the lower classes. One time means they will not understand. The teacher must have the patience to listen the question of the children, and she has to answer 2 or 3 times or 4 times, means even the children will be very happy with those teachers.
That is the kind of thing. Why not try something new? When you go back to your school, why not decide that, okay, when I go back, I am going to try a different method in my class. I am going to try out. What happens? Of course, it depends upon your subject again. Which subject are you teaching?
But all decision may not be workable, is it not? Or successfully we cannot implement. So what type of decisions we have to make? Okay, positive. There is another word, wise decision, is it not? Who can make wise decisions? Wise individuals, is it not? Who is a wise individual? Experience make. Then whosoever having more information, isn't it? First information, then that is transforming to knowledge. So in all guidance and counseling program, what we are providing is nothing but information. We provide information, then he make use, that become his knowledge, depending upon his experience and context, surroundings, is it not? He will assess it, evaluate it, and then take a decision. So wise decision. Alright. Abdul Kalam used to tell to the children that, dream high. Is it not? Alright. All should dream high. You also. Is it not? It is not this stage, where you can be, limit to your own talents and all. We should try to see that, we should achieve with respect to our, maximum potentials. That is our education also aims for our children. But we make a small corrections in Abdul Kalam's statement. What is that? You all will dream, is it not? All right, but it has to be a realistic dream. Realistic dream. That means achievable dream, is it not? Suppose I want to make, to get into a pilot. All right. You know that there are physical, requirements for that, fitness for that. So you should know that before to be a pilot, whether I am fit or physically fit or not. Think about that situation. So what is important in our guidance? We have to first understand the child himself. Okay, understanding self, that is more important. Then only whatever the information you are providing, he can make use of it. Is it not? Let us take in the field of career guidance. Nowadays, people are interested to join for Indian civil service. Let me ask you a question. How much intelligence requirement is there for to become a Indian civil servant? Okay, IAS or IFS or anything. A child should have intellectual ability. How much? No, vast knowledge. I am talking about one ability, intellectual ability. Have you heard about IQ? Is it not? Alright, how much IQ? Let us say 90 to 100, 90 to 120. We call it as. Alright. Yeah, I will agree with the madam. Average intelligence only, not above average or like Einstein's IQ. We don't require. Is it not? Any normal individual can. Alright, but people may have misconception that only people with a high rank holders only can. No. What is their requirement there? Yeah, dedication. Is it not? Hard working. That's all. Then anyone can crack. Is it not? So that we should inform the students. It is everyone's cup of tea. Is it not? Okay. So that way we will inform. So realistic dream we should have. Alright, that's what we need to tell to the children also. Okay. Further, when you look upon, you can see that guidance. Who are all required guidance? Only students? Yeah. What about you people? Yes, you also require, is it not? What about when you people are, let me put it in that way.
Certifying. So once you certify, the child cannot improve after that, isn't it? So the level is crossed. Advantages, there are disadvantages. So the advantage is that you can certify a student after a period of time. It will not be good for us to judge the children every day in and day out. So we should take some time to assess the students. So that is why it is called as evaluation. It is not called as assessment. Evaluation includes qualitative or quantitative description of the pupil's performance plus judgment. And it can include either of them or both of them. So it can be quantitative, qualitative or both plus judgment. And this is evaluation. So what we are doing in our school systems is largely, evaluation, in the sense we certify the students, and even the formative assessments are used as part of summative assessment, and that's also a kind of summative assessment. So that way, what we are doing, this assessment is used as an end product. So then this is assessment of learning. Then the other two things are like assessment for learning. If you want to bring about improvement in learning, you should use assessment during the learning process. So in the sense when child is learning something, so this can be assessed through various ways. So largely projects, assignments, anecdotal records, several other things. I'll talk about that little later. Then there is third one, which is far ahead of these two, that is assessment as learning. So in assessment as learning, you don't distinguish between learning and assessment. You consider both of them as the same. I will also give you an example for this. Okay? So these three different forms are very important for us, because what is the purpose of assessment? Whether you want to certify or grade the students, or you want to provide feedback to the students, or you want to make assessment in such a way that the student does not differentiate between learning and assessment, and as a result of that is not aware, and naturally what happens then, seamlessly and effortlessly learning happens. So if you ask me which one is the best, I say nothing is best. All the three are important in different compositions. So you can use them extensively. So that is the recommendation of the NEP and also the NCF. Then NEP also talks about 360-degree multi-dimensional report card. So those of us who are familiar with the medicine and going to hospitals and all that, we see different kind of scanning mechanisms. You know, you are aware of the CT scan. So what happens when CT scan is done? Huh? It's a detailed study of different parts, different organs, the functioning of the entire system as a whole. So that is what 360-degree multi-dimensional assessment and reporting expects. In the sense, now what we are assessing is only in bits and pieces. Okay, so we have language class, you do language assessment, mathematics class, mathematics assessment. We don't assess them in an integrated manner, and even if we assess, then we assess certain aspects more importantly and relegate the importance of other kinds of assessment. So somebody has said very wonderfully, I keep remembering this because this is something very important. So he has said that in India, normally, as you know, you are all teachers, there are 3 dimensions of pupils' learning: cognitive, psychomotor and affective. So he says that, and you are also familiar with the baking procedure. So cognitive is overbaked. In the sense, you know, you keep conducting tests, examinations, monthly, quarterly, weekly, annually, half yearly. So we are like over baking the things. What happens when we over bake? No taste, and nobody will eat. So in the same way, like the students also get exhausted, and they'll be of no use to themselves and also to the system. So this is just a general level. Then the second thing is that psychomotor domain. This is half-baked. You know sometimes how to, grade the performance, like you have certain yardsticks, you do that. But sometimes you do not know, in the sense, you don't know the difference between whether I am developing fitness among the students or developing competitive abilities among the students. There is a difference between the two. So if you want to maintain fitness, you need to have certain standards. But if you want to be very competitive, you have to be best in the field. So there is a difference, isn't it? So we are not sure. So we want everybody to be like Rabindranath Tagore or someone else, isn't it? So that cannot happen. But at the same time, we have to encourage the people where he or she is good. So that has to happen. That's also not happening. So in the sense, there is a lopsided assessment which happens in the assessment of psychomotor domain. So then when it comes to values or attitudes, perceptions, all these are part of affective domain, and here it is completely unbaked. So what happens if dough is unbaked? You get stomachache, isn't it? So the same thing is happening here also. So when we don't do justice, so what happens is that the students don't develop those abilities. So when they don't develop those abilities, we keep cribbing later that these children do not have values like us. We are sincere, honest, dedicated. I don't know how far we are, but we always question the younger generation. So that's what happens, and as a result of that, there will always be a problem. So why the affective domain is very important, and how it cannot be assessed in the same way as cognitive domain. There are many questions. So we need to address them. So you cannot know many things like you know through cognitive domain, assessment of cognitive domain. So affective domain is very, what I should say as slippery. In the sense, it's a very slippery domain and it is very difficult. And people question whether it should be assessed or not. So you can assess someone for their honesty, and you have not provided adequate opportunities for the child to be dishonest or honest. So then, and if you conduct a test, and everybody will know that, by marking this option, the teacher expects, I will be right. So what happens there is that the student is aware of the person who is testing his interest in responding to a question and responds accordingly. So that's why written examinations cannot test all the abilities. There are certain abilities which can only be tested by practically interacting. So if I want to know someone is very sincere and dedicated to the job, I should not simply see the check-in time and check-out time, but also I should see how he is working by interacting with him, by seeing his work. There are many things. So that is why this formative assessment or school-based assessment is very important, because there are certain dimensions which cannot be tested through written examination, which is conducted at the end of the year. So then the new education policy also talks about holistic progress card. Holistic progress card is again very complex issue. So in the sense, the people in the assessment and evaluation, they question the very subject of giving or not giving importance to school-based assessment. So say for example, if I give, like she said yesterday, that 20 marks, whatever, practicals are for 20 marks. So practicals component has to be increased. So it's not only practicals, even assessment also. It has a component which is smaller. Say for example, public examination has 80% and school-based assessment has 20%. So this 80-20 is also creating a problem. So why this 80-20? Why cannot it be 30-70 or 50-50? I will come to that. So what I am trying to say is that when it comes to assessment, especially, so it has to be like as far as possible objective, as far as possible serve the interests of the children, as far as possible facilitate the teachers in improving their teaching methods, and as far as possible provide an understanding of how resources are playing a role in improving the performance of the students, and also finally how far the support structures are in place in order to see to it that the assessment that we are carrying out is also resulting in, the support is helping in children's learning. So that also should be seen through assessment. So largely in India we conduct three types of assessment or evaluation. One is the familiar one I will start with, public examinations. So these examinations are basically for certification. They are summative in nature. And the second one is formative assessment or school-based assessment or CC, whatever, which happens within the schools. And thirdly, we also conduct systemic, for developing a systemic understanding of pupils' learning, we conduct nationwide achievement surveys, or PISA, Program for International Students Assessment, or state level assessment survey, achievement survey, so things like that. So these are one category. They are not providing individual feedback, they are not providing feedback as and when the student requires or teacher requires. They are providing systemic feedback, how people, like, say for example, they relate that with the different variables, background variables, when they are conducting national achievement survey or state level achievement survey. It is not only the students' responses which are taken into consideration, it is also how teacher, the school and parents, including community, are helping the students in learning. So all those factors will be seen. And say for example, I can give you, some, anecdotal reports. So what we found was that there is hardly any difference between, through achievement surveys, that the teachers who are graduates and the teachers when they are postgraduates or PhD. So what is your commonsensical observation on this? Why there is no difference between a teacher who is a graduate teaching or postgraduate or PhD? What could be the reasons?
That means the score of the students who is taught by a graduate and the score of the student who is taught by a postgraduate doesn't differ. That is what sir is asking.
Yeah.
Why is it less?
Students effort, but teachers' role is also there, right? Because we relate teachers' qualification with students' performance, isn't it? So I agree with you when you say that it is students' performance, but it is one of the variable which influences the performance. One of the significant variable. Okay? So there are other factors which can influence, but teacher's qualification is also something very important. Why do you think that a graduate teacher or a postgraduate or PhD would not make any difference, and sometimes the performance goes down when the child is taught? This also we have seen in some states, when he or she is taught by postgraduate or PhD. Any idea?
Maybe maybe the very higher level than
Okay. These are calculated guesses. Yes. Maybe higher level. Yeah. Okay. Yes.
The level of connecting with the child.
Yeah. That's the same as high level includes connecting and all that, subject teaching, everything. Any other guesses?
His experience with the small kids.
Yeah. Okay. So you cannot say experience is a different variable. So
more expectation from the student from a PhD guy, where it is not going to match, right?
more expectations.
From a student from PhD guy, where it is not at all it is matching.
No, we are not looking into other dimensions. We are just looking into performance. Why it is low. Okay, anyone else? Those who are sitting in the back? Okay, let me say this. In the sense, normally what happens is that if a highly qualified person goes to teach small kids, he or she may not be, having the interest, right? So PhD also means, that's one thing. Second thing is that PhD also means knowing more and more about less and less. It does not talk about the spread of the subject. So that is second dimension. The third dimension is that the requisite competencies, abilities are acquired by a graduate teacher, and whatever extra or the inputs, they are not required, isn't it? So as a BSc B.Ed, somebody may do complete justice to the student, and the higher qualification certainly is not influential in our teaching learning. So that could be one factor. So these are all calculated guesses. So there could be other things. So why I just am focusing on these aspects is that, so these kinds of systemic feedback is given through these national or state level achievement surveys. And also what we found was that in spite of everyone saying many things, the performance of SC/ST is lower than that of BC, and BC is lower than that of general category students. So this was also observed across cycles of National Achievement Survey conducted from 2001 to 2017 or 21. So why I am saying this, though some students may be improving, but in general their status, especially in rural, remote, tribal and all other areas, it is still low compared to other categories. So this can be an additional input. Another quite revealing input is that what we found was that caste does not play the same role as class plays. So I think you got my point. So in the sense, a child belonging to a family of lower caste, but still when that parent has higher class, his child's performance is better compared to the child who is in upper caste but lower class. So I think you got my point, right? So this is a very sensitive information, and this can also create problems. But this I came out with when I was doing my research. So this is not just hearsay. So what we do in education, it is not just simply hearsay. It is based on facts. It is fact-driven, reporting. So that's important. So then it talks about holistic progress card. Like I said, this holistic progress card should consist of all dimensions of students' learning. It should not just simply confine to what you have scored in that major 5 subjects. History, not history, maths, science, social science, language, and what else? These are the things. So what happens is that when you are assessing only these aspects, students, parents and everyone give importance to these and neglect all others. So that's why a 360-degree multi-dimensional report should consist of information of students' performance in various activities and all the 3 domains. So that is very important. And the moment we include these aspects, they will be, prioritized. They will be given importance. So like, the vocational work and also physical education activities, the morality, values, attitudes, it can be through rating scales or whatever, testing all the abilities, and if you know the pattern, you can crack the pattern without studying the entire subject. And that's what happens, right? So last year these 5 questions were given for long answer questions, and this time you avoid. Do you do that in your, please tell me honestly. Huh? No, some are saying, your vice principal is saying yes, and you are saying no, I don't listen to. Yeah. Okay. So there, you see the pattern. So it's like cracking the pattern rather than learning in entirety, right? So largely this happens. This happens in in big public schools and in all kinds of school system. So this also will not be of use to the students ultimately when they go up in the academic ladder. Then the new education policy also talks about choice in board exams. So yesterday I've spoken about that choice, in the sense you can select among the curricular areas and which one to opt on, which one to opt out, and that way that choice is also available. And then board exams to test core capabilities or competencies. So what is a competency? Yesterday I touched upon that subject, and today also I will be dealing with that subject to some extent. So capabilities. So like I said, whether in giving the example of swimming or in giving the example of emailing to other students, there are certain capabilities. So there are also certain competencies. So what is a competency? And competency is very beautifully defined. It's a concepts are mental constructs which help us to make sense of the world. So they are mental constructs which help us in making sense of the world. So let me give you one example. You know that there is something like oppression. You know that there is something like sustainability. And also we know that there is something like change. So all these are concepts. So change is a concept. So when we talk about change, it can be a change, physical change that happens over a period of time. If you take out your parents' photographs and you can see, how they have moved from one level to the other, in the sense, that whole range can be seen, okay, like physical change. So the metamorphosis that happens can also be seen in some of the living beings, okay, the transformation that happens in flowers, so that can be seen. And there are many things that we can observe, but change is one concept. And if you understand the change, which normally we don't understand, we are always sticking to the times, right? So then you will understand everything. Then you will allow the things to let go, isn't it? So that's very important, change. How far we are able to bring about a change in the students' performance. So that we see through portfolios, right? Like that, there are many things. And sustainability. So whether anything is sustainable or not sustainable. So that is also a concept. And oppression. So when we talk about oppression, it can be an oppression a woman faces at home. Normally you are all educated and qualified women. I don't think you will allow for oppression. Do you allow for oppression at home? No? Nobody is raising the voice.
No.
Okay, what about other people? You allow? Then you are not saying it. Okay, so I believe that everybody opposes oppression. That does not mean that you would not listen to the other person. You listen to the other person, but you don't like to be oppressed. So what is oppression? There can be different kinds of oppression, So if you want to give, if you take oppression as a concept, and you can choose a topic. That's what happens in curriculum. So if you are in Africa, you understand slavery better. And if you are in India, you understand about the caste system that prevailed upon at one point of time in our country. So these are all oppressive regimes. You also talk about the colonial past, how we were oppressed, not we physically, our forefathers, mothers also. So they were oppressed at one point of time. So that can be, a topic. And so in these topics you can discuss about various things. But ultimately you are talking about one particular concept. So today we have huge curriculum load and we are teaching everything, we are assessing everything. The reason because we don't differentiate between what is concept and what is a detail, isn't it? So if you teach concepts, like I gave the example of democracy yesterday, so you can clearly understand the things and the students don't require any further support. They have to explore further. But what happens is that it is like, spoon feeding. We are feeding everything to the students and as a result of that they are not in a position to understand. So that is another problem. Then the NEP talks about board exams to test core capabilities or competencies. So board exams so far, they had been testing, everything and everything. They were testing the content in the textbook. So now they will be very skeletal in the sense they will test only the basic concepts and leave out everything. So that is another important recommendation. And board exams will be conducted twice in a year. So in fact there is a thrust for online and on-demand examination. Whenever a student is prepared to face the exam, he or she can appear for the examination. So that's what happens through online examination. And then assessment of subjects at 2 levels. This is not being taken up right now, I don't know why. And board exams will have 2 types. One is MCQ and another one is descriptive. So, and then There will be tracking of the performance of the students at 3, 5 and 8 levels. So these are very critical stages, grade 3, grade 5 and grade 8. If you ask me, I'll tell later. And school exams are first has to happen in the classroom. So how can it happen? So there are many ways, many strategies. Like when we say 360-degree assessment, so public examination cannot take that 360-degree multi-dimensional perspective. It is school-based examination which has to do it, not examination, assessment. So in the school-based assessment, what is important is like, there are many varieties of assessment that can happen. I'll list some. So one is that self-assessment, peer assessment, group work assessment, portfolio assessment, anecdotal records, okay, projects, assignments, checklists, rating scales, and many other things. I can go on and on, but I'll stop here because that will be too much in 1.5 hours. Rather, we have less. So now you tell me which one I have to explain. I can tell you. Which one you are not familiar with of the terms that I have spoken. Then I can talk about that. Anecdotal records. So normally what happens is that anecdote is a report of the small report, brief report of the actual behavior of the child. So when it comes to assessment of cognitive domain, you have something like evaluation questions, and then responses and all that. You can record that. But sometimes it may not be possible for you to report the values, the attitudes, etc. of the student. So, say for example, NEP talks about, especially in the foundational stage, children should not be assessed directly through written examinations. You have to make observation, right? So when you make observation, you also write anecdotal reports. Okay, small, brief, 3-line, 4-line reports. So I would say that, like let us say, a particular child. So I go back to the example that I gave yesterday. So something like 10 rupees was falling in the school premises, and the student brings it and hands it over to the teacher. So this is something which is very critical. There is no opportunity for us to record this. So when you want to do it, you have to do it as an anecdotal record. So this particular child, X, Y, whatever, on this day, he has done this. So this can go in the report card, right? And this is what ultimately the new education policy talks in terms of 360-degree multi-dimensional assessment. So here he has certain value which is missing in even among older people, right? So something that you have as very important, and also this can, there can be many things. Supposing you have given a group task, a child who is ahead of others is helping others, not only performing himself or herself, and also helping others in improving their performance or taking initiative. So these kinds of things can be anecdotal records. So these are very valuable, important, useful, and they have to be brief statements, and they have to be factual in nature, and they have to be written and reported immediately. It's not that I just recollect, last year this fellow has done that. So you may forget who has done that, right? So it should not be like that. Anecdotal records should always be done immediately, and they should be brief records, and they should be used extensively in understanding the students, their behavior, their attitude, their values, their interests, etc. So that's why we use them. Okay. Portfolio. See, portfolio is something which we always have to develop. In fact, portfolio, the thing has come from arts, the fine arts. People used to, whenever they used to go to places where exhibitions were conducted or to show to the selectors, people used to present their records like best works that they have done in the form of art, and now that is translated into education. So if you have, like supposing I say that you have drawn about 100 pictures, so when you go to someone, will you take all those 100? That person will not have the talent. So you will only select the best ones. And will you select the same type? You will not select. You will select different types. Where you have painted a human being, where you have painted nature, and things like that. So this can also happen in the same way. So that way portfolios will be very useful. Like there are many advantages. Supposing you start a portfolio of a particular child in grade 1, and you can continue up to school education or even beyond that also. So that shows the vertical progress of that particular student, or self-referenced, we call it as self-referenced progress. You cannot always compare two individuals because they are always different. But if you see what progress a child has made, then you will understand the things better. And we can also know whether we as school teachers have done something relevant, important in the lives of the students to make a difference. So that also we understand. So portfolios are used extensively as cumulative records for understanding the people's performance. And also there are different stages in developing portfolio. First is, it is collection of items. So you should have collection of good work. Then selection of the good work, in the sense you should know which particular piece of work is better compared to other. And then finally, after selection, a presentation on the best work. So all this will in a way facilitate in developing certain metacognitive abilities which otherwise are not done through many of the assessment techniques. So why I am saying metacognitive abilities, it is going beyond cognition, in the sense the student knows that these are the 100 works, and out of that I am picking, let's say 3 or 4, and I should know how these are different from others. So that's again a skill, okay? And then present the unique features in those 3 or 4 paintings. I'm just giving the paintings example because it is easy for everyone to understand. So this can happen in maths, this can happen in language. So I just give you an essay, say for example, to a student in class 5, 6, 7, 8, whatever. Or I can give in every quarter. And I have a cumulative record of all the essays that the student has written. I will see different dimensions in that, in the sense language, coherence, and organization of thought and presentation, everything. So through this, and the student will have to compile these, select this, and present this, which one is best and why it is present. So that's why the portfolio becomes a very useful tool if you use very effectively. So it can be across different subject areas or in the same subject. Okay? I can have a portfolio for maths, portfolio for language, or I can have portfolio in class 5, 6, 7, 8. I have kept all my best works from maths, language, science, etc. So based on that, the teacher would guide whether you should go for science or select language as an option in 11th, 12th, whatever. So these are some of the possibilities. Anything else you want to know? I've spoken about other assessment techniques. have any? Rating scale. Okay. Rating scale and you know, I mean, when you go to buy anything, say for example mangoes or anything for that matter, so how do you know that, I mean, the vendor is by looking at the quality. So what are the important parameters? Let's say mangoes, this is a mango season. So what are the important characteristics of quality? Price is important.
Size, color,
Price, color,
brightness,
brightness.
taste also. Smell.
You cannot taste everything, otherwise
Smell.
smells. Okay. Okay. So these are all the parameters, right? Isn't that? So say for example, you have 10 varieties of mangoes. So 10 varieties of mangoes. So how do you judge which one will be good? Please give her the mic. Let her respond. How will you judge? You have 10 varieties of mangoes.
Maybe we are familiar with previous knowledge means badam, raspberry, like that, sindura, like that we will buy.
How great it was. So it is very easy to give all our ideas, thoughts to our children. It's very easy. But drawing out ideas from our children is somewhat difficult. It needs hard work. It needs preparation. It needs patience. It needs understanding. It needs reflection, and so on. Correct? So that is education. So definitely, so my dear teachers, we are really impressed. Even though we were in Mysuru for the last 64 years, this is the first opportunity for us to be here with these professors. So we are very grateful. The St.Thomas institution was very grateful. So let us be in touch with Regional Institute of Education. And we are so thankful for all the guidance, support, thoughts that you have shared to us. Especially, I was hearing Shaji Karnagan sir. So the beautiful language. So how amazing it was. So perfect. Presents are humorous talk but communicating very beautiful thoughts. So we are very grateful to all our professors, especially these madams, Anamika, right? Anamika madam, and we both, Pooja and Rajeshwari, and all the technical assistance we got from our friends. So once again, from the bottom of our heart, definitely with honesty, let me say, we are really blessed, we are really enriched, really we are motivated, definitely some changes will happen in the St. Thomas institution. Thank you also. Teachers, once again, in the name of all my teachers, in the name of St. Thomas Group of Institution, I bow my heads before our respected professors for the wonderful sessions